If you like this video and want to see more, please hit the red subscribe button now. The Chernobyl disaster began with a force that, honestly, just defied comprehension. The initial steam explosion released a burst of radiation so immense it was equivalent to, well, 400 Hiroshima bombs. This single event on a quiet April night in 1986 would rewrite the history of nuclear energy and permanently scar a continent. The sheer power from reactor number 4 was not a military nuclear detonation, but its radioactive consequence was far more insidious and widespread. A technological failure turned into a global environmental crisis. The fallout would travel thousands of kilometers, contaminating land, water, air. The immediate aftermath was a scene of chaos and disbelief. The explosion tore through the 1,000-ton steel and concrete lid of the reactor, sending a column of fire and radioactive debris high into the atmosphere. The plume, glowing with an eerie incandescence, rose over a kilometer into the night sky, carrying particles of uranium fuel cesium-137 iodine-131. The very air around the plant became lethal. Radiation levels exceeded the measurement capacity of most dosimeters. The disaster was the violent rupture of a system, a breach between harnessed atomic energy and the living world. On April 26, 1986, a flawed safety test became the trigger for the world's worst nuclear disaster. The test simulated a power failure, slowing turbines generating electricity, running cooling systems until backup generators kicked in. But inherent design flaws in the RBMK 1000 and critical operational errors created a highly unstable core. It was pushed into a low-power condition its design couldn't handle, leading to a runaway chain reaction. Operators tried to shut it down. A massive power surge occurred. Energy spiked over 100 times normal. Cooling water flashed to steam. A colossal steam explosion blew the reactor lid off. First blast, then a second, likely hydrogen explosion. The scale of the human displacement following the Chernobyl disaster was, honestly, just unprecedented. In the days and weeks after the explosion, a vast evacuation effort was undertaken, ultimately resulting in the relocation of over 300,000 people from the most contaminated areas. The first to leave were the approximately 50,000 residents of Pripyat, the purpose-built atomic city located just 3 kilometers from the power plant. The evacuation was announced over 36 hours after the initial explosion. Residents told they would be leaving for only a few days. They departed in fleets of buses, leaving behind their homes, leaving behind their pets, leaving behind their personal belongings, most of which they would never see again. This initial evacuation was just the beginning of a much larger and more protracted process of resettlement. As the true extent of the radioactive contamination became clear, authorities established an ever-widening exclusion zone. If you like this video and want to see more, please hit the red subscribe button now. The radioactive plume from the burning Chernobyl reactor did not respect national borders. Carried by prevailing winds, it embarked on a grim journey across Europe, depositing a cocktail of dangerous radionuclides over vast territories. The initial wind patterns carried the most concentrated fallout northwest, heavily contaminating large parts of Belarus, about 70%. From there, the cloud continued its silent drift over Scandinavia. On April 28, workers at a Swedish nuclear power plant found abnormally high radiation on their clothing. That became the first external evidence that a major nuclear incident had occurred in the Soviet Union. As weather patterns shifted, contamination spread in multiple directions. A second southerly plume moved across Central and Southern Europe. Poland recorded significant increases in atmospheric radiation. Germany recorded significant increases in atmospheric radiation. Austria recorded significant increases in atmospheric radiation. Switzerland recorded significant increases in atmospheric radiation. Italy recorded significant increases in atmospheric radiation. France recorded significant increases in atmospheric radiation. The fallout rained down unevenly across the continent. The Alps received particularly high concentrations. The Scottish Highlands received particularly high concentrations. This patchwork contamination meant one valley could be heavily affected while the next stayed relatively clean, making assessment and mitigation incredibly complex. The health and environmental consequences of the Chernobyl disaster have been profound and long-lasting. The most immediate and tragic human cost was borne by the plant workers. The most immediate and tragic human cost was borne by the first responders, known as liquidators. Of this group, 134 suffered from acute radiation syndrome, with 28 dying within months of the accident. In the years that followed, a dramatic increase in thyroid cancer was observed among those who were children or adolescents at the time of the accident, especially in the most contaminated regions of Belarus, Ukraine, Russia. This epidemic was directly linked to the intake of radioactive iodine-131 through contaminated air and milk in the initial weeks after the explosion. The environmental damage was equally severe. The red forest, a pine forest located just downwind of the reactor, turned a ginger-brown color and died within days due to massive radiation exposure. Rivers and lakes were contaminated with radionuclides which entered the aquatic food chain. The long-lived isotopes, particularly cesium-137 with its 30-year half-life and strontium-90, became embedded in the soil, ensuring a persistent source of contamination for the ecosystem. The decaying reactor, now encased within a massive new safe confinement structure, stands as a monument to the perils of nuclear technology and the hubris that led to the disaster. Its scar on the land and in human memory serves as a permanent reminder of the price of failure. If you like this video and want to see more, please hit the red subscribe button now.